Hi there, my name's Adrian and welcome to Position 1 Power Equipment. Today we're going to look at the P140T and the P140TE Tiller. The P140T is the manual start model and the P140TE is the electric start model. I've emptied out the contents of the packaging here onto the bench so that you can see exactly what you get. Take great care when removing it from the packaging, and if you've got somebody to help you, that would make it a lot simpler, as the control cables are already connected to the two handles, and it would be quite easy if you weren't careful to kink the cables. So just take a bit of care and bear that in mind. Okay, so first of all, we have the main tiller unit itself. As you can see, it comes connected with the left and right hand cables. Here we have the drag bar or depth bar. The pull start cover off the engine comes separate, but it simply clips in on the top. We shall go through that. You will have a plastic bracket that looks like this, which goes together with the handles and will end up in this position here. You have a spark plug spanner and T-handle. Two plastic cable tidy clips, we'll show you where they go after. A bolt and washer, we'll show you where that goes. A comprehensive user manual. Now I do recommend that you read through this, and the assembly instructions are in there as well. But it covers the P140T and the P140TE electric start model. And with the electric start models, you also get a battery charger, we'll show you how that works, and a set of 2 keys for the TE model. Let's start by fitting the pull start cover. So if you just remove its protective film, you'll see that there is a slot in this corner here for the pull starter to pass through. So we'll just pass the pull start cord through that slot, and you'll see that there are 2 barbed lugs at the back of the cover which slot into a hole this side and this side. That's the rear 2 fitted. In the centre there are 2 barbed lugs as well, and just by squeezing the 2 sides together they will also slot into their holes. And then finally there are 2 barb slots coming out and rear at the front here. You can squeeze again and pop them into their holes. And that's the pull start cover fitted. It's as simple as that. It simply clicks into place with 2 lugs at the back, 2 in the middle and 2 at the front. And it is very simple indeed. Let's move on to fitting the handles. The 6 nuts and bolts, 3 this side and 3 that side, are already placed in their holes and first of all need to be unscrewed and removed. The nuts are on the inside and the bolt comes from the outside in. The first thing we'll do is remove those. Now, of the 2 handles, the clutch side, the one with the big orange lever, is on the left hand side from the operator's position, so it would go on this side. And again, the one with the throttle and the key start on the electric start models would go on the right hand side. So that's just to sort out the orientation of the 2 handles. The next step would be to fit this handle bracket over the 2 bars of the handles before we start. So I take the clutch side, the flat face going on first. You'll see that there's a flat face and a face with a hump which faces downwards, or in this case the way I've got it upwards, but it will be facing downwards in use, as you can see. Push the plastic bracket down, past the point in the tube where it is crimped, and maybe on, say, a little 1/2 inch, and it will actually become loose at that point. So that's the first one done. Now I can lie that on the machine, and I can come round to the other side, just taking care that I don't drop the other handle, and I can now fit the second handle through this bracket. And as you can see, that's a little bit of the sub-assembly done with the 2 handles through the plastic bracket. So now that I have the 2 handles through the bracket, I can carefully lift the handles up into somewhere near their operating position and hook them over the top of the machine. And I can also put the little plastic bracket in position on the top of the chassis. So what I'll do now is just place the bolts through the holes loosely to hold it in position. It would help if you had a little bit of assistance doing this, and I'll come around that side, do the same thing. Line up the holes in the handle. Where are we? Here we are. And place the bolts through the holes. And the last one there. Okay, so the next step will be to put the nuts on the back and tighten the 6 bolts. So having put the 6 bolts in position, you may find it's more convenient, because it is now a little bit back heavy, to let the machine lie right down onto its handles, and then it'll sit there nicely while you do up the 6 bolts. So 13 mil span on the inside, 13 on the outside. And I'll just do them up loosely for the time being. Once the 6 bolts are just done up loosely, the odd bolts that I showed you earlier will screw in through the top of the plastic bracket and down into the chassis. So I'll screw the bracket down into position using the bolt with a large washer that was in the parts. Getting somewhere near. Finally tightening up with the spanner, 13 millimeters again. And now I can final tighten the 6 bolts. So having fully tightened the handles, we can now flick it over the other way to fit the drag bar. To do that, simply pull out on the wheel at the front and put it into its upright position. It's spring loaded and it goes, pull it out, up to there, pull it out, it goes back down. So we'll put it in this position and then flick the tiller right over until it sits on the wheel. This now allows us to fit the drag bar. So to fit the drag bar, you'll see it has 3 grooves which come up from the bottom, and it can go at one of 3 heights. So what we'll do is simply remove the R-clip and first of all fit the drag bar right up through without the R-clip. Then we'll tip it back over onto the drag bar. We can now put the wheel back in the bottom position and it will now stand like so. I can bring the drag bar down, and for the purposes of this I'll put the R-clip in the middle slot. So final little job on the assembly here. You've got the 2 plastic clips and they basically hold the clip onto the handles here and just hold the cables neatly against the handles of the tiller. And there we are. So that's the main part of the assembly done. As you can see, with the wheel down and the drag bar in the middle position, it will sit here quite nicely on my bench, but I appreciate for most people will actually be doing this probably on their workshop floor. Okay, next thing we need to do is fill the engine with engine oil. Your machine will ship to you with no engine oil in it. The oil is filled here through this filler neck, which is combined with a dipstick. Unscrew anti-clockwise the dipstick, and you will see on the bottom of the dipstick are a series of cross-hatched lines and the word maximum. You need to add approximately 0.6 of a litre of a semi-synthetic 1030 or 1540 motor oil up to the level where it says maximum. When checking, pour it in gradually and simply dip the dipstick and pull it back out until it reaches the maximum line. Take your time with this, as if you pour it in quickly, you may be dipping into the oil that's still in the filler neck, so allow it time to drain down into the engine before dipping. So once it gets to its maximum mark, having filled it with engine oil, as I say, a 1030 semi-synthetic or a 1540 semi-synthetic engine oil up to the maximum oil level, you can then replace the dipstick back into the hole and tighten it up clockwise until it's firm. And that's the engine oil filled. Let's move on to fueling your tiller. The fuel is filled through the filler cap here, which is on the rear left hand side of the engine from the operator position. Simply unscrew the fuel filler cap anti-clockwise and pour your fresh unleaded petrol in here. Just a little safety note, never fill the fuel when the engine is hot, and certainly not with the engine running. Allow it to cool before filling with fuel to prevent an accidental fire. Should you spill any fuel while filling, give it time to evaporate and mop up any excess fuel before attempting to start. So fill the fuel tank with fresh unleaded petrol to within about 25mm of the top of the filler neck. Once you've filled it with fuel, replace the filler cap by turning clockwise, and your tiller is now fueled. So having assembled the tiller, filled the engine with engine oil, fueled it, everything together, let's go through the starting procedures. Firstly for the manual start, and then I'll follow it on with the electric start. With the exception of the pull starter, which is located here on the top of the engine, all the controls are done from the handlebars. You will notice that the clutch for transport has been cable tied to the handle. So the first thing we will do is cut off this cable tie. So I've removed the cable tie from the clutch now, and it'll spring up into its open position. This will now stop the tines moving. To engage the tines, push up on this little interlock bar and pull down on the clutch to engage the drive for the tines. It's a little safety interlock to stop you inadvertently starting up the tines when you don't want them running. So up with a little lever, pull down on the handle, and that's the clutch engaged, and the tines will drive once you've started the engine. Here on the right hand handle is the combined stop, choke and run lever. For a cold start, it needs to be fully forward, and it actually says cold start here. So you come from your stopped position, fully forward, and then you can pull on the pull starter and start the engine. Once the engine has started, drop back away from the choke position to the run position, somewhere around here, and the engine will then be running. To stop the engine, simply pull right back on the lever and the engine will stop. So, on the manual models, fully forward into the cold start position and pull start the engine. Once the engine has started, drop back to the run position and you can commence work. To stop the engine, pull it right back to the stop position. For a warm start, you may not need to go right forward. So right forward, that would be the cold start. A warm start, you may put it just to the run and pull start the engine. So for a cold start, fully forward and pull start, and for a warm start, slightly back and pull start. To stop the engine, in all cases, fully back and the engine will stop. Let's move on to the electric start variants. For the electric start model, the keys to start it and the key switch is located here on the handlebars in a convenient position. Simply put the keys in the lock as you would with a car. For a cold start, fully forward and start, I'll just demonstrate using the keys. Once the engine has started, drop back to the run position and it's ready to use. To stop, drop right back to the stop position and turn off the key. So I'll run through that again. For the electric start, cold start, fully forward and turn the key to its second position, and it will crank and start the engine. Once started, drop back to the run position. To stop, fully back to the stop position and turn off the key. For a warm start, forward to the run position, turn the key to the second position and start with the key. To stop, the same, rock back to the stop position and turn off the key. Let's move on to how to charge your battery. The P140TE models, the electric start models, come with a battery charger. It's quite normal for the battery to have no charge in it when it arrives, although it will have some charge. Charge the battery for 5 hours with the mains charger before the first use or after long periods in stowage. So to use the battery charger, it's very like a mobile phone charger, plugs into a 13 amp outlet and plugs into the battery here on the front right hand side of the battery, and it's simply a little plug like a mobile phone charger. Okay. As I say, when you first get it, charge it for 5 hours, and that should be good enough for about 10 uses of the machine if it hasn't been stowed for a long time. Perhaps every 10 uses or 30, 40 starts, something like that, you may need to charge it again, as the battery doesn't charge itself while it's running. So, to charge, plug the charger into a 13 amp wall socket, plug it into the unit, and the battery will then charge, and it will take around 5 hours from flat. So that's charging the battery on your P140TE electric start model. If you have the electric start model and your battery is flat and won't start the engine, you can still manually start it using the pull starter. Pull starter is located here on the rear of the engine. You can, for a cold start, put the control handle into the cold start position, and instead of turning the key, you can pull start it with the pull starter. Again, for a warm start, you can put it in the run position instead of the cold start position and pull start it with the pull starter. However, it will not charge the battery up. If your battery is flat, you will need to go through the battery charging procedure as I've just shown you. I do hope you found this demonstration useful. For more information on this or any of our other products, visit www.p1pe.co.uk. I've been Adrian, and happy gardening.